Welcome to the first episode in a new Legendarium series about the stranger things found in the Middle Ages. In this installment, The Black Death Culture, we will talk about the morbid and death-obsessed culture that emerged in Europe following the bubonic plague. Human society is extraordinarily resilient. It can endure terrible blows and still survive, even if it is in a much changed form. The Black Death, which burned through Europe from 1346 to 1353, caused the death of 1/3 to 2/3 of humanity across Asia, North Africa, and Europe. Needless to say, it profoundly changed the culture of Christian Europe. People became all too aware of the all-conquering power of death. This obsession found its way into art. During the Middle Ages, the dead only rested in cemeteries for a couple of generations until they passed out of memory. They would then be moved elsewhere to make room for new occupants in the graveyard. Defleshed bones and skeletons would be moved into charnel houses, also called ossuaries. And during the Black Death, these ossuaries grew in size and number. They were seen as works of art with bones and skulls arranged in an aesthetic manner. Visitors were allowed in so they could reflect upon the enormity of death and, of course, repent their sins. Paintings known as Danse Macabre, or the Dance of Death, were often painted in medieval and Renaissance charnel houses. These paintings portrayed different members of medieval society being carried off by dancing figures of the dead. This reflects a key idea of the Black Death culture, namely that death was the great equalizer. It spared neither prince nor pauper. Despite the grim topic, these Danse Macabre paintings often had comic overtones, with nuns being caught by death while with their lovers, and mocking skeletons challenging doctors to cure themselves of their fatal illness. During the Renaissance, Danse Macabre would appear again in woodcuts that appeared in the first books. Cemeteries themselves were not just places to dispose of the dead. They served as lively centers of social activity. People held local elections, trials, sermons, trade fairs, and even brothels within the cemetery, likely in part because it was church property and thus tax-free. Likely in part because of all this activity in the cemetery, there were many reports of the dead rising from their graves, groaning and murmuring. Some medieval tales portrayed the dead as malevolent, coveting wives still living and bringing the plague with them. But one such interaction, described in the tale of the three living and the three dead, put the dead in a far more sympathetic light. In the story, three vain and foppish young men are hunting in the woods. They then meet three dead men, a recently dead man, a rotting corpse, and a skeleton. They warn the three living that they were once rich and powerful too, and look at them now. The three dead then warn the three living that they too will one day die, and that they best prepare themselves for judgment. Chastened and repentant, the three living leave the company of the three dead and set about reforming their lives. The late medieval obsession with death found one more manifestation. Traditional medieval tombs included a sculpture of the deceased, dressed in knight's armor or bishop's robes. After the Black Death, the Transi tombs put that same statue on an upper bier and a statue of a decomposing dead person underneath. Sometimes the sculpture of the moldering dead would include toads or snakes consuming the victim. The comparable Frau Welt statues in Germany featured a beautiful young person on one side, while the back was disfigured by worms, maggots, and toads. In short, the front symbolized what was good in life, and the back symbolized what would happen to all things in this world, good or bad. That wraps things up for this installment of the Legendarium. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, press like. If you want to see more, press subscribe. And if you've got anything to say, let me know in the comments section. Thanks again for joining me, and I hope that you have a great rest of the day.